I'm that poster child of covering up what's going on inside. True me was a bloke that had zero confidence, was uncomfortable around people, uncomfortable in himself. I built a personality and built a character of myself as armor. I started trying to be that character and it was never me. I'm different to everybody else like we all are, but I'm very similar to a lot. I've lived the very highs of life and I've lived the very lows of life. I'm a suicide survivor, I shouldn't be. So none of this stuff should have happened. It's not easy to be vulnerable, but that's where the strength lays. We love to argue, we love to fight, we love to prove ourselves right and prove them wrong. It's not about fixing people, it's about helping people.
Holding space.
My brother took me to suicidal tendencies. It was one of the most pivotal moments of my life. Probably selfish in a lot of ways in doing what I do because I love it. And I love talking, man. I get paid to talk for a living. When you find that passion, that drive for something, everything else just changes.
If tomorrow was your last day on earth, what would be your proudest moment?
Holding my kids for the first time. Am I the best husband? No. Do I have a wife that loves me? Yes. Am I the best dad? No. Do I have kids that I love and love me? Yes. That's success. I love to vacuum, man. I'm a weird cat. I'm a strange cat. I love to vacuum.
Before we jump into today's episode, I have a small favor to ask from you. If you've gotten any value from any of the podcasts, any of the content that I have put out, please hit the subscribe button. It honestly helps me so much. It helps this channel in growing. And as you've seen, as the channel grows, the guests get bigger and better, which means I can provide more knowledge and more value to you, the listener. Thank you and enjoy today's episode. Ben Higgs, thank you so much for joining the Better Project today, man, and making the trip out here.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
What made you say yes to coming on?
What made me say yes, man? I've listened to the podcast for a while. You know, different people that have come on here and there, and I think it even might have been the Kevin one where I hit you up and said, man,
you did reach out a bit.
Yeah, because I know Kevin and I seen it and I listened to it and it was really good. And I was like, mate, you know, if you ever want to chat, I'd be keen to. And then, you know, we were just talking before. I love the sharing of stories. I love hearing people's stories. You know, one of the big things I do is encourage people to tell their story because we discount our stories so much. But, you know, in the few years I've been doing this, it's when you hear people's stories, that's how you connect. And because everyone's different, everyone comes from different places, we need all story out there, I think. And I love talking, man. I get paid to talk for a living. So I thought I'd make the trip out west to come and have a yarn.
I appreciate it. And the good thing about storytelling and what I've learned from jumping into this podcast space and mental health is how relatable you are to other people. Like there's always going to be a part of your story that someone can relate to. Yet so many of us, especially men, we feel like we're alone. We go through that period of, fuck, it's just me. I'm the only one going through this. But in fact, you're not. Like we'll talk today and I'll be able to connect with parts of your story and you'll be able to connect to parts of what I say.
Yep.
And this is why we have these conversations. So the listeners can be like, hey, Nick's gone through this. Ben's gone through this. I'm currently going through this. If these two men can sit in front of each other, have the open conversation, why can't I?
Yeah. And I think we were always conditioned to not talk because there was that comparison, you know, that imposter syndrome. Like, you know, why should I be sharing mine, talk about mine? There's people out there that got a heap worse. You know, well, there's always someone that's got it worse. But as you said, there could be someone listening to this go, you know what, that was me at some stage, or that's me at the moment, or I can understand that. And I'm glad it's not just me. You know, like we're just talking before and a little bit talking then. We're both dads. So we've got a similar connection there. You know, and there's so many different things, and you know, you can read books, you can read textbooks, you can sit in the classroom and talk, but I think that sharing that's where it really sinks in.
Definitely. Ben, what do we need to know about yourself to better understand the man that sits in front of us?
Mate, I'm just a normal dude, mate. I'm just another bare bum in the shower at the end of the day. You know, I'm different to everybody else like we all are, but I'm very similar to a lot, you know. Mate, I'm just a bloke that, you know, I was very lucky in that I was raised well. You know, a lot of people come on podcasts like this and they have this story, and I don't have that type of, so I had a good childhood, man. I come from a good family, and I was raised, you know, my old man was one of those blokes that was tough, but would always give, was always there to help people, do whatever he could to help people. And I think that was instilled in me a bit, and, you know, I've been very lucky in my life, and I want to use that. You know, I've got the opportunity to be able to go out and help people and share with people, and I want to use that. And yeah, I've lived a pretty fun life too. I've lived, got some, got plenty of stories, and it's sharing those stories and being able to help people connect with people, mate. That's
You mentioned like you didn't have a traumatic upbringing or anything like that. And it's like, okay, why are you in the mental health space? Because very similar story to me.
Yeah.
I didn't have any traumatic upbringing, anything like that. Yes, I didn't have the best connection with my father or my family, and I felt a bit different or a bit of an outcast growing up, but nothing traumatic. And I'm like, okay, why am I in this space then?
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. I'm very open with people when I go on talk. I say from the start, this ain't 60 minutes of current affair story. I'm not going to break hearts of that. Like, I'm fully aware that I had a good life, good childhood, very lucky like that. But like you just said, I always felt like I was on the outside looking in. I never felt like I fit in. I had groups of mates, but I never felt like I was in that inner circle type thing. I was always sort of on the outside looking in. But that was just the deal. That was just life, I suppose. How I got in the mental health space by pure chance, fluke, circumstance. I'd lost one of my closest mates to suicide. A really, really close mate. And a couple of weeks before it, he'd reached out to me and wanted to chat, and I was so scared to have that conversation that I never called him back. It got to the point, he was even ringing my missus and saying, get him to call me. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I didn't know what to say or how to say it or what was going to happen. All those doubts that we have, am I going to make things worse? What am I going to say, and then I can't talk to him ever again. And that hit me really hard. And me and another mate decided we put on a charity night, raise some money up. I sort of grew up half at the beach and half in the Sydney punk scene. And so, Rod was in both of those scenes as well. We're really tight. So we got a heap of bands that we knew, some pretty big bands and everything, and started a charity night, just raising money for the Black Dog Institute. And I loved it. It was awesome. And just that feeling of, what, we've brought people together and we've done some good here. And I loved it. I was working full time as a crane driver at the time. And then a couple of years later, I lost another couple of mates. And then me and a different mate, we put on another charity event, a 24-hour treadmill run. And then it just blew up from there. That event became huge. Pardon me. That it actually ended up being the largest event in the world for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And then, through that, there was a lot of publicity and stuff, doing interviews, chatting to people. I realized, hey, I really like this space. And I think I can do some good. And, sort of when you find that passion, that drive for something, everything else just changes. I left the Sydney waterfront, my illustrious career on the waterfront. And the more I dipped my toes into it, the more I loved it. And then part of that too was being exposed to that space allowed me the opportunity to start to look back on my life. And I'd always kept what I'd gone through hidden. I'd never spoken to people about it. I'm that poster child of covering up what's going on inside. I built a personality and built a character of myself as armor. And that character I built sort of overcame me. And I started trying to be that character, and it was never me, and it was only when I was on my own that actually, that's wrong. I can look back now, and I think the people that are closest to me, my closest friends, are the people where I was comfortable enough to open up and drop that mask and be myself. And I think that's why they are my closest friends. But mate, I live with mental illness as well. I never knew I did. I just thought it was me. I just thought that I was just a little bit different. The first charity thing we're doing was for the Black Dog Institute. And because of that, I was able to actually go up there and do some work with some of the psychologists up there. I was actually diagnosed with bipolar, which it was funny going home and telling my missus. She was like, I could have told you that fucking 10 years ago, mate, I'm a suicide survivor. I'm one of those people that, I've lived the very highs of life and I've lived the very lows of life. But it wasn't until actually the mental health space, it wasn't even a real thing. But once I was exposed to that and realized that we could actually start to pull our lives apart and work out what's going on, I loved it. I really loved it. And I saw I saw that just by connecting with people and talking with people and sharing with people, that it actually started to help people. And I love that. You know, I'm probably selfish in a lot of ways in doing what I do because I love it. I get a lot out of it. You know, I probably get more out of the sessions I run than some of the people in the room. But yeah, and then the more I jumped into it, the more I loved it, the more I realized the more people we needed in it, and the different voices and the different faces we needed in the space. Like you said, all these different stories, we need everybody in there so that we can capture. There could be that kid that's sitting at home saying, well, I've got a good life, I've got a good family, you know, why am I complaining? I just got to shut up and not complain. Who am I to complain? Well, it's not that you complain, you're just talking about what's going on. Yeah, so that's how I got into it, mate. My missus hates it when I say it. I made the worst career decision you could ever make financially. I left a job on the waterfront. You know, I say to people, I got paid a lot to do very little, into a job where I do a lot and don't get paid too much. But there's something to say about waking up in the morning and loving the work you do.
It's the fulfillment.
Yeah, you know. I spend a lot of time out of the house, probably 2 or 3 weeks of the month, away from home, away from your kids, away from your missus. And it's hard. It's really hard. But it's worthwhile at the end of the day, you know. I know me and all the other guys out there doing the same work I do. We don't do it to become rich and famous. Anyone in this gig to become rich and famous is delusional. They're doing it for the wrong reasons, because you're not going to get rich, you're not going to be famous. People do it, the people that are doing it right and the people that are doing it for the right reasons, they're doing it because they care. And we see the impact it makes. You know, I've lost a lot of friends. I shouldn't be here, and I don't want my kids growing up in that environment. I want my kids growing up in a place where they know they can talk, that their mates can support them. And that, you know, dealing with this stuff's just like dealing with asthma. Just like dealing with diabetes. It's not a death sentence. Just got to put some structure in.
You mentioned you created this identity, this armor. Who were you trying to be? Like, what was that armor? And then who were you beneath the armor? Who was the true you?
Mate, the true me was a bloke that had zero confidence, was uncomfortable around people, uncomfortable in himself, didn't know who he was unsure of the world, and was there trying to, you know, I was looking at a lot of older guys that, you know, I looked up to. Growing up at Maroubra Beach, you know, it was a pretty crazy time back then, pretty wild. And looking at those blokes and just trying to emulate them and just to fit in, just to that armor, that personality was me trying to piece together all the, you know, the different elements of people that I thought they wanted me to be, or to be that person that fit in, that was accepted in, you know, because deep down inside, I didn't feel like I did. You know, I talked to some guys that I went to school with, you know, and we talk about this stuff, and they're like, man, we never thought that. We thought you were completely different to who you actually are. And I was like, well, that's because that was that persona, you know, and the more I felt like I didn't fit in, the more that persona sort of took over to try and so I was over the top with it. I was a pest, you know. It was when I finally got home, it probably made things even worse, drove me even further into that darkness, because it was that, you know, get home and you take your work boots off, or you take gear off from work, and that,
yeah,
and you just spent. Well, that's how I felt every time I got inside, because I could finally let that down. And you know, there's still times now where it sort of comes on a bit, but you know, I think I've realised now that the more I'm myself, and the people that actually like that version, they're the people I want to be around. You know, I think it's one of the benefits of getting older. You realise who's there for the real you, who's not just there for the party, who's not just there, you know, to go out and carry on and have a good time.
I want to touch on confidence for a bit. You said you lacked confidence.
Yeah, still do.
Still do?
Yep.
How do you feel you gain confidence, though, in your opinion?
And stepping out of that zone, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, doing this shit right now. You know, I'm not comfortable in it. It's weird when I got in this space. The mate I did it with, me mate Spook. We were the perfect combo. He loved being in front of the camera. He loved being out there. He loved being the spokesman. He loved being the face of it, and I was good with that, because I liked being the bloke in the background doing the work. You know, I loved that. So we were unreal combo. And then things happened. A lot of shit happened along the way, and I was sort of thrust to the front. But, you'll see, our social media and everything like that. I hate being the face. It's not about me at all. I hate that because I'm not comfortable with that. I'm comfortable when I'm around the people I'm comfortable with because I've never had that confidence that, that persona sort of may have seemed it, but deep down, nah.
Where do you feel that stem from?
Probably growing up, I think, knowing that always feeling different. Always feeling like I didn't fit in, realizing that I thought differently, I reacted differently, I perceived things differently. And I guess that probably comes from living with an illness, when that illness has never been described to you. It was never explained to me. It was never shown what to do, what not to do, that it was okay to feel and think how I was. You've got to pretend like you don't feel that way. You've got to pretend like it's not happening because you're worried about how people are going to react. And I think because that little part of me, that person inside was suppressed, that person was never allowed to grow.
Yeah.
Where it's only been the last couple, probably about the last 10 years, I suppose. Kids have a way of doing that, of stripping you back to who you really are and exposing you for who you are. But I'm still not, probably like everyone, I've got my doubts. We're talking before, a lot of the blokes get in here in singlets and stuff. I'm not rocking it. I'm not pulling the singlet on. A few years ago when I was training a bit hard, I probably could have. I've put on a few kegs since then. But it's a hard thing, that confidence. We've got to be uncomfortable though. And it's funny, people say, well, how do you say that when you get up in front of groups of people and talk all day? But I don't know. I think because that vulnerability shows when you're up talking, if that's there, and I know what I'm doing is worth pushing myself out of that. People don't realize how much I sweat when I'm doing it. It's funny. I used to wear like I love a Ben Sherman polo. I used to have this light blue one, but I'd get off from the day of work and I'd have these massive sweat patches. And so I just wear black now. Slimming as well. But so people can't see that that's what's going on. I'm 100 miles underneath, Even sitting here now.
What's going through your mind right now?
What's going through my mind right now? Am I talking too long? Why am I saying this? Am I jumping all over the place? I do jump all over the place. But I know that's part of it. If you're over too confident or in things, if you're not pushing yourself out of your zone, you're complacent and you're not growing. And so I think that's part of it. If people say they didn't get nervous talking in front of people, I'd say they're a liar, they're a sociopath, or they're not getting out of their zone. It's uncomfortable talking about what's going on inside. Mm-hmm. It should be uncomfortable because I think that's when you're actually digging into stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Vulnerability in itself is a huge risk.
Yep.
You don't know how people are going to take it, what they're going to say, judgment, all that kind of stuff. But what I've learned is by taking that emotional risk in being vulnerable, that creates authentic connection. Like, how much more connected do you feel to someone once you've opened up and they open up back to you?
Yeah.
You feel so 100%. Much more connected to them.
Yeah. Oh, look, man, it's only probably been the last couple of years that I'm comfortable. If I feel I need to start crying, I'll cry.
Yeah.
And I never knew that we could do that. I think especially as guys, that stereotype that's built into us that we've got to be this strong, tough, stoic person. There's a time and place for that, but part of it too, I think, is being vulnerable and being able to open up. Kids probably have a lot to do with that too. You see that perspective.
Yeah.
My kids have a way of, there's no people, my kids and my missus, there's no one in the world that grinds on me more than them, but there's also no one in this world that I love more. And I think seeing that balance and now seeing, trying to change like I think we all do. You grow up a certain way and you're taught different things and you want to mold your kids into what you think they need to. So, having two young boys myself and trying to teach them that it is okay to be vulnerable, that it is okay to show that emotion, to feel. And it's one thing to say it to them, but it's another thing to show them as well.
And so you got to lead by example.
Yeah. And look, I say all this, I don't consider myself a good dad. I'm not a natural dad. I struggle with it. I find it hard. But it's good. I love it. You know, we talked before, I waited a long time to have kids. I wish I had had them earlier, but I also, I wouldn't be the person, and I was never ready to have kids.
Are you ever ready? That's the thing.
No, but I certainly wasn't ready. I certainly wasn't ready mentally, emotionally. I wasn't in a place in my life to have them any earlier. So I'm glad I waited, and you know, I think they happen at the right. Some people, they happen at the right time for some.
I feel it all happens for a reason. At the time when I found out, I was like, what is my life kind of? I can't even look after myself. How am I going to look after a child? But man, becoming a father, it makes you grow up quick smart.
Yep.
Biggest blessing to ever happen to me, honestly.
Same. You know, mate, I'll tell you, the first scan my missus went for our first kid, I turned up at the hospital and I'd been out for a couple of days. I'd been home.
On a bender?
Yeah. The doctor looked at me as if to say, do we need to put you in on a bed, you know? And that was the biggest slap in the face, the biggest hit of reality I've ever felt. Being in there and realising, what the fuck am I doing? You know, I'm so glad that, you know, you look back, I'm glad it happened. Yeah, no, you're never real ready, but I think it makes you ready. You got to be. What choice you got? Mm-hmm. You know, or the only other choice you got is to be that deadbeat that isn't there for him. You know, and then what sort of, like an example, what sort of kid you're raising then? You know, you're not raising a kid. What are they going to, you know, what have they got?
Yeah.
You know, and I certainly don't want that. You know, as I said at the start, I'm lucky I had the greatest dad ever. My old man had his demons. We always bagged my dad. All my dad's money went on whiskey, women, and horses, mate. But he was a top man, you know. And if I can try and do as good a job as him or better, yeah.
As a father, I feel we just have to do the best with the tools that we have.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And to me, I see it as it's our obligation to do better than our parents did.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. 100%. You know, it's tricky. My oldest is 11. With the phones and the social media and all this shit at the moment, it's
crazy.
And he's getting older physically than he is mentally.
Mm-hmm.
We're having some interesting conversations. There's a lot of long hot showers going on at my joint at the moment. And my missus has never had young boys. My eldest was the first kid in 80-something years born into my wife's family. Mm-hmm. So she's never grown up with young boys, and mum and dad have never had little boys in the house, you know. So it's strange and weird and foreign to them.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Well, what are some of the lessons your kids have taught you about life?
Not to be so serious all the time. You know, I live in a very serious world in the work I do. And at first, you know, I'm not a psychologist. I didn't have any training in doing what I do. I was still winging it. I'm still winging being a dad. The one lesson that they're still teaching me too is just patience. Patience. Yeah, that's probably the last couple of years. I was always very quick to fly off the handle, which I'm trying to stop. I still have my moments.
We all do. I
do.
nearly had one this morning. My daughter was eating oats and she got it everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I had to teach my kids from a young age. We're allowed to say fuck in the house. You're not allowed to say it outside the house. My wife certainly have a rule. If you want to swear, you got to sing it. So you got to sing it, which was interesting. But no, my kids are also brought up in a very different, probably, environment than most kids. My boys were at daycare, and I was working with Suicide Prevention Australia at the time, and I was editing a promo video we're doing, and it was 3 minutes of just people saying to camera suicide. So it's 3 minutes of just people with the word suicide, and you know, you disconnect from what you're doing when you work and get stuck in it. I was just sitting on the lounge editing this video, and the next day my kids at daycare walking out saying suicide. And we get the phone call to come in. Like, what's going on? And we had to explain it to them. So my kids have grown up in a bit of a different world like that now. Especially during COVID, where running all these virtual sessions and stuff from home, they were hearing all this stuff and asking them. And I lost a friend, you know, a bloke they called Uncle a couple of years back. And when they asked what happened, you know, trying to explain to them in a way they'd understand. And, you know, he was sick, and, you know, some people are sick in the body. Yeah, well, your uncle, he had a bit of sickness in his head and it got too much. My mum turned around and said, well, don't you have a sickness in your head? And I was like, oh, shit, And so explaining that. So they've taught me things like that, just trying to work through stuff too. Trying to explain it to a kid's a good way to try and explain it to yourself as well.
I think that's how you can fully grab a topic or whatever it is, but if you can explain it to a kid, then you fully understand it.
Because you've got to simplify it, and that's really helped me. I think, I go out 5-6 days a week talking with people, trying to explain this mental health stuff. And I think actually trying to explain it to a kid has really worked, trying to explain it to adults, trying to simplify it, really simplify it, because we overcomplicate it. But if a bum Wolfie can understand it, I think everyone can.
So how would you explain it then in simple terms?
Mental health, how you think, act and feel. Thoughts, feelings and behaviours, that's mental health. That's the simplest way to explain it. Mental health impacts how you think, act and feel. The good and the bad. The good and the bad, both sides of it. That's all mental health. Yeah.
How is the Rise Foundation, shaping the conversation around mental health? Because I love this about you and Matt Reynolds that I had on the podcast too, is awareness is great, but action is what makes the change, and the education, and that's what you guys are doing. And that's a big part of this podcast. It's like, we can have the awareness piece, like Are You Okay Day, Mental Health Month, all that kind of stuff, but you need to back that up with actual action.
Yeah.
So how are you guys doing that?
Yeah. So when I started doing this, 12 years ago or something, it was all about awareness. It wasn't really, the mental health space was just sort of starting. I think Are You Okay Day just kicked off. And it was all about awareness. I realized, well, wait, where does awareness get us? What does awareness do, really? For me, it was education that was going to create change, and a change that I wanted to see. And so that's sort of where we stepped in. Like most mobs, I think I started, let's do T-shirts and merch and sell stuff and all that. And it was good. It got a little bit of money in the door, but that wasn't where I was passionate about. And also, again, what's a T-shirt going to do? Looks cool. We only do new T-shirts when I want to wear something different. And I'm lucky too that I know tattooers all over the country. So whenever I need something done, I just ring one of them and say, hey, design me something that looks cool. And if I think it looks cool, well, people are stuck with it. That's why our logo changes probably once a year.
Yeah, okay.
If someone does a new drawing. But but what are we doing? We're really about the education piece, but also the simplification of it all. 2 days ago, I was at a mine site up in Singleton. A couple of days before that, I was with uni students. I was with Qantas staff. I'm in boardrooms. I'm in gyms. I'm talking all these, last Saturday, I was up on the Gold Coast with a men's walking group, Mungles men. Just a group of older blokes that catch up once a week, go and have a chat, one of those walk and talk groups. I've got to be able to pass this education, these learnings on to every different type of cross-section. And because everybody should understand it. So it's that simplification, I think, of it. But also bringing it from a place, there's not many blokes that look like me with my story out talking about it. And I realise there's lots of blokes out there like me. And girls. We're not just a men's mob, we taught everyone. So it's just through that connection, and bringing the education part in. I figure if I can understand it and I can talk about it, other people can understand it too. I'm not saying I'm a dope, but I'm not the smartest bloke in the room. So really simplifying it and bringing these learnings in. And I'm very fortunate that I've worked with lots of different mobs, lots of different organisations, talk to different people. I collaborate with pretty much everyone out there. I'm all about collaboration. And so pulling different pieces from different parts and bring it in and going, well, here it is. Pick out the bits that interest you and that appeal to you and that connect with you, and then you go forward and you build it from there as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're pretty lucky. We, the education for me, as I said, that's the big part. Learn about it. We're always learning. Things are changing. I've seen some of the learnings and some of the applications of all this change since I've been doing it. If I went back to 8 years ago, saying some of the, back then, some of the things we were talking about and encouraging people to do, well, are they right? We've probably just learnt. They were right then, but we've just learnt, we've grown. People weren't doing ice baths 8 years ago, in the mental health space. Now we're seeing psychedelics and things like that being used. So it's being able to change with it as we learn.
Do you do ice baths and dived into psychedelics and stuff?
Yeah, I do. My neighbour Bo, he's a ex-pro fighter. I think Bo's still dreaming of a comeback. So he's got the ice bath there. I had a sauna, infrared sauna before I came here. After I trained, I had the sauna and everything. So I love all of that stuff. I'm no Wim Hof. I'm no masochist with it. I'm a sook like everyone else. I'm not having me cold showers. I know that. I always say to my missus, we live in a first world country. One of the small things I can still have is a hot shower. But yeah, do all that. And yeah, the psychedelics, I've tried it, I'm open to trying new stuff. If it's going to work, good. If it doesn't, move on, try something else. I don't recommend it for everyone. I don't recommend just sitting there in a room with a couple of mates and getting off your face and seeing what happens, because it could be dangerous. But doing it with the right people in the right way, learning about it first. And it's not just about going and getting as off your face as you can and seeing what happens. It's about doing it properly and doing it for the right reasons.
What was your experience like?
Really good. Really good. I've had a bad experience. And I've had really good experiences. I've found the experiences I've had have allowed me to view things from a different angle and really pull things apart, pull myself apart.
What were some of the things that came up?
One of the big ones for me initially was that acceptance of myself. This is going to sound really strange. It's a really weird way, but this is how it works, I suppose. I remember it was Good Friday. Souths were playing the Bulldogs. I'm a massive Souths fan. All right. It was hard driving out into enemy territory out here. But it was actually watching Latrell Mitchell. And I realised at that point, I'm like everyone else. I'm self-conscious about how I look. Yeah, I could be a lot lighter. I could be training more, could be eating better, all of that. And I seen Latrell, I went, have a look at him. He doesn't look like a pro athlete. If he can look like that and perform like he does, I can still be okay with who I am and do what I do, which is a really strange way, but I suppose that's how the psychedelics work. Sometimes it hits you, and that's that self-acceptance of being, what? I look how I look. I am how I am. Take it or leave it, as long as I'm happy with it. A bit of that. A lot of my relationship with my parents got pulled apart, Me and my mum weren't growing up. Probably from my late teens, probably into my 30s, me and my mum weren't the closest. We clashed on a lot of things. I'm very similar to my father. And mum and dad separated 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think I reminded my mum and my dad a lot. But being able to step back and view how I was dealing with the relationships around me as well. Some of the barriers, the walls I was putting up for myself that were them barriers for other people to get closer into me. It helped. It helped a lot. As I said, I'm not saying everyone go out and start tripping balls and get off your face, but if you can do it we just saw it just got legalized this week that some therapists allowed to start using psychedelics.
Yeah.
And I was lucky. I spent a week down at the CSIRO down in Melbourne last year as well, where they're running the trials on it. So I got to speak to some of the scientists. Yeah, wow. So I wasn't part of the trials. I was down there running mental health first aid for some of the scientists down there doing the trials, and actually got to speak to them, which was really good, and getting their take on what they actually saw and not just what's getting reported.
Do you feel like it's going to play a huge part in the mental health space?
Yes.
Instead of, I guess, drugging people up on all the SSRIs and stuff that they give people, this is a more natural route that people can take, and it's actually doing the work.
Yeah. Because
it's bringing up the stuff that you can work through and take action on it, instead of, in a way, kind of masking it.
Yeah. Yeah, look, the subject of medication always comes up. I take medication. Is it a cure? No. Does it help? Helps me. Mm-hmm. It's a safety net for me, because I don't want to be super strict on my lifestyle, like I've got kids. It's that day today. I can guarantee tonight I'll grab a couple of beers, we'll get pizza or a burger or something, we'll sit there and watch the footy.
Yep.
I love being able to do that with my kids, of course. That's how I want them to grow up, being able to do that sort of shit, So the medication's there as a safety net, but it's also a bit of a Band-Aid. Where I think, the things like the therapy and stuff like that really dig into what's going on and help you pull things apart and learn. And if the things like psychedelics can start to help with that process of bringing those walls down for people. And the one way the guy explained it to me is that we get stuck inside and try and view our problems from being stuck inside, where the psychedelics allows people to step out and look back in, so you can view what's going on from a different angle. And you match that with the therapy, and then, the different lifestyle stuff, exercise, and getting in the ocean for me. The sauna this morning, doing all these little things, they help. They work. Talking.
That's it. And you just mentioned the ocean, and I've seen on your Instagram, you're like, mental health is like the ocean.
Yep.
How do we continue to ride those waves? We're going to fall off from time to time, but how do we get back up and continue to ride the waves without drowning?
I think the first part is understanding that you are going to, knowing that you are going to, we're all going to have bad days. Part of it, but we're going to have good days too. We've all made mistakes. We've all had things go right. We've all had bad days. We've all had good days. I've lived at the beach all my life. And if there was no waves every day of the year, people would lose their mind. So we need those big waves. We need, and part of the fun is getting dumped and he's getting smashed. And is that, shit, am I going to come back up here? Because when you do come up and take that breath, a lot of the time it's followed by a bit of a laugh and a, fuck, can't believe that just happened, and it pumps you up to go back out and do it. And if we can look at life the exact same way, that they talk that word mindfulness, but when you're in the ocean, especially when you're surfing, that's mindfulness because you're present, you're enjoying it, Salt water fixes everything as well. But, it could be the same for some people that fight or race cars or bushwalk, It's finding that, but I use the example of the ocean because some days the waves are big, some days it's small, some days the water's freezing, some days it's nice, some days you just want to go for a swim and float, some days you want to get out there and surf and, and it's proven salt water makes us feel better.
Yeah. It's just finding what works for you.
That's it. Find what works for you. As I said, if it works, good, use it. If it doesn't, find something else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the idea of the ocean, that sometimes it's scary, sometimes you get too deep, sometimes you're having a ball. And also understand some people like it, some people don't.
Yeah, you have to go through that. You have to go through the ups and downs.
Yep.
How boring would life be if it was just calm?
Yeah, that's it. And look, I'm not one of those people either that thinks that, it's just the hard times in life or it's just the struggles we go through that build who we are. It's the good times too. And I hate that mental health is only ever spoken about in the negative sense. That is, we just want to emphasize these hard times and, hard times build hard people and, what is Goggins? Get hard.
What's your take on Goggins?
I love him.
Yeah?
I don't think I could spend more than 20 minutes with him. I think he's too much for me. But I love hearing I love his books.
Quick one. This podcast is now sponsored by Savvy Beverages, the 100% all-natural brain-boosting nootropics drink. Savvy have actually just revamped all their flavors, and let me tell you, they are amazing. My favorite flavor being the mixed berry, but they also have lime and a new flavor, passion fruit. But I'll be honest, taste is not the only reason why I love Savvy. I used to struggle with coffee, any sort of energy drink, anything that had caffeine in it, I could not have because it would set off anxiety within me. Now, what I love about Savvy is it has a 2-to-1 ratio of caffeine and a little ingredient called L-theanine. Now, here's the kicker. L-theanine allows you to experience the energy boost of caffeine without those pesky anxious side effects. It's honestly a game changer and it's why I continue to drink Savvy. So if you're interested in trying out Savvy Beverages for yourself, head over to their website at www.savvybeverage.com.au. The link will be in the description. And as a special treat, they're offering an exclusive discount just for you. So use my discount code BETTER20, so that's BETAR20, during your checkout to receive 20% off your order. Let's get back to the episode.
I read the first one, then I got the audio book for the second because he's almost like a cartoon character, And I love hearing his stuff. There's a place for it. I couldn't be like that every day. I couldn't deal with someone like that every day. It's too intense for me.
You need that balance.
Yeah. But hey, there's times where, I'll put him on and you just get that pumped, and it's like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to smash it now, and that's the time and place. And that's like the ocean. Sometimes you need those waves like Goggins hitting you. Sometimes you just need a cuddle and just to float and relax, But we've got to celebrate the good too. My life would be fucking miserable, going and doing what I do every day, talking to people who just talked about the bad times in life. I love to have a laugh in the sessions I'm doing. You know, it's morbid when you say it. You're there talking about suicide and stuff and having a laugh, but fuck, if we can't laugh about shit too, what's going to happen?
I think that's a big focus for like this podcast. It's like when it comes to shaping the mental health conversation, it's like, how do we make it fun? And the example I like to give is, you mentioned ice baths and say breath work. 5-10 years ago, it was the weird thing that hippies did, right?
Yep.
Now it's like all high performance, like get your mindset, your body, everything like that, because they made it fun. They made it like the cool thing to do.
There's 50-year-old ladies doing it now. You know, there's older people doing it now.
Exactly.
I throw my kids in it. So when we have the ice baths, it's just like one of those little blow-up ones you buy online, and I just do it in the backyard. And so me and Bo, we get in, you know, and then all the kids are around, and then after, they're like, can we get in? And we're like, yeah. You know, so it's fun, you know. But it's good too, we're showing these kids, you can, you know, do it, jump in. You're not going to like jumping in. You got to like getting out. You're not going to like getting in, but you're going to like getting out. So take it on and have a bit of fun with it too.
That's it.
Yeah, we have all the sessions we do, we have a bit of fun, we have a laugh. You know, I tear into myself. I put shit on myself as well. I bag people in the room. Because you got to. If it was all doom and gloom and negative talking about this stuff, that's why it's got to the point that no one wanted to talk about it. Because it was just a doom and gloom. You know, on the physical side, we talk about both ends. We're comfortable with it. That's why we're comfortable talking about, because we talk about both sides.
Yeah.
The mental health space, we just never did. You know, there was a bloke talking before the Origin the other night. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to give him any extra airtime because he fucking gets enough. But he said that we don't call it mental health anymore because there's bad connotations. So we've changed the name. I was like, well, way to go fucking making that connotation even worse then. You know, because if you're going to change the name of it because there's a bad connotation, we're just saying, well, that term's bad. So let's not talk about it. Well, let's talk about it in a good way. That's how we break that connotation. So we have a bit of fun, you know. Most of the, you know, the hard times we learn from, but I've learned heaps from the good times in life too. I've learned a lot about people from the good times, a lot about myself for the fun times, you know. So we talk about both, man. It's all right.
That's it, yeah. The way I like to shape the conversation is I kind of break it up into like a 3-tier system. So like we all have mental health, right?
Yep.
That's our base level, whether it's good or bad. And then we drop below, that's mental illness. And then at top is mental fitness.
Yep.
And that's where we should be striving for. But we've got to understand that, hey, we're going to dip below that baseline. But it's how do we pick ourselves back up? Yeah.
Yeah. When I hear that term mental fitness that they love to throw around, I picture mental fitness is when you're actually proactively working on it. You know, when you're looking after your physical fitness, you're going out and you're doing the shit you need to get yourself fitter.
Yep.
That term mental fitness for me is someone that proactively works on it.
Yeah.
You know, and so putting all the steps in place where mental health is where we're all living. The good and the bad. That's where we all are, because we all have physical health, we all have mental health. And as you said, down the bottom is some people do have a mental illness. Some people got physical illness. But look, I've got a mental illness. I'm mentally well at the moment.
That's it. And you can still build your mental fitness each and every day. And that's what it's about. It's not saying mental illness is bad and mental fitness is so great or mental health is bad. It's like we all go through the full spectrum at some point during our lives, but it's understanding it and how we get out of it.
Yep. And that's, you know, what we've never been shown is that we can work on our mental, we can build that fitness around mental health, and that we can, you know, actually the things we do for ourselves are more beneficial than the chemicals we can put in ourselves to try and band-aid it. And so that's part of it. You know, people got to get the understanding of it, and then people got to get the learning that this is what I can do, this is what I shouldn't do. Maybe it's okay to do these things sometimes as long as I'm bolstering it up with all the other stuff. And like I said tonight, you know, if I watch the footy tonight, have a couple of beers and a pizza, I'm good with it. Because I went and did 10 rounds of boxing this morning, sat in the sauna. You know, and I'll go home this afternoon, I'll get shit done around the house, I'll play with my kids. That's mental fitness. That's working on your mental health as well. Of course, that's a bit of me time. That's a bit of self-care. I love doing it, you know. I love to vacuum, man. I'm a weird cat. I'm a strange cat. I love to vacuum.
Same here. I actually love cleaning. Yeah. Because it's just like, I'm just present in the moment.
It calms me down.
Yeah.
Yep. My kids know if I put my earphones on at home, it means leave me alone unless you need me, but you know, I'll put the earphones on, I'll put a podcast on, I'll put some music on, and I'll clean the house. I love it. You know, just that repetitive motion of vacuum. And I find myself sometimes I'll vacuum a room a second time just so it goes longer. You know, but it's that time, and sometimes that, like you talk about being present, but I'm in a distant planet. I'm in a different world when I'm doing it, but I'm present doing what I'm doing, you know? And then you get that satisfaction that it's done, you know? Yeah, I love it.
Okay, sweet. I'm not the only one then.
No, you're not the only one, man.
This is like, you're fucking weird, man.
Yeah. And whenever I bring it up, people go, come to my house. It's like, no, I love vacuuming my house. I don't want to vacuum yours. I want to vacuum mine. Like, I love cleaning my car out. I'm not going to clean yours out. Although my business partner went to Bali the other week and I borrowed his car. You know, just he's away for a month, don't want his car just sitting there. I drove it once. I was that embarrassed the state it was in. I had to clean his car. I was like, I can't have this. I can't have someone with their car. Like, it was disgraceful.
Yeah.
It just drives me insane.
Every time I drive my missus' car, I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna clean it all before I drive. And she's like, oh, thank you, babe.
Yeah. No, I got that too from my dad, I suppose. My dad was a super clean freak. I love to iron as well. I love ironing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's strange. But I got that from my dad too. But just that repetitive motion of just sitting there and just zoning out. I'll put the TV on or something, have a movie or whatever, and I'm not even really watching it. You know, I'll just have a podcast on. I'm not even really listening. I'm just in that space. I'm just doing shit, you know.
So how do you go from, I guess, that extreme to your other self-care of freaking punk rock concerts and stuff, which I seen on your Instagram?
Yep. Yeah, man, I love that shit. As I said, growing up, I was always into, you know, I got taken to my first concert at 14. My brother took me to Suicidal Tendencies. And that was it was one of the most pivotal moments of my life. One, because it was the first time that my brother was ever allowed to take me out, just the two of us. He was 5 years old, you know. But just seeing that band, and I'd always heard it around the house, my brother playing it, and I got right into it, heavy metal, punk. And then growing up, I got into that scene and loved it, man. Though people hear that music that don't understand it, think it's just this aggro shit.
That's what I think.
Yeah. But especially, you know, the punk stuff and the hardcore stuff, man, the lyrics around it, you know, 90-something% of the time they're uplifting. You know, once you get into it, you feel it. And like, you know, some people don't like it, man. I can't. My elder son loves hip hop.
Yeah,
I can't fucking stand it. You know, I like your Jay-Z's and shit like that, but he gets into this new shit that's coming out. I don't understand.
There's not even lyrics in it.
No, I can't understand it at all, mate. And he knows it, so he just annoys me with it. I'm like, this is payback. This is what I did to my parents. But no, I loved all that, you know. I love being able to get some of that aggression and some of that angst out. But I also love the camaraderie. Some of my best mates have come from that scene. Me and my missus just went in the States for 2 weeks. We went to punk rock bowling. So I met my missus through the scene. She was working on the jump of my one of my really good close mates' record store. Yeah, and one of my friends was her mate and everything like that. But we connected through that. We just went, as I said, we just went to a 3-day punk festival in Vegas. I love that. I love it all. My son's name's Strummer in Sydney. Joe Strummer from The Clash and Sid Vicious from the Sex Pistols. Mm-hmm. That's how much it means to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to play a little game where there's a list of 22 questions. So I want you to choose a number between 1 and 22.
13.
Oh, fuck, that was quick. Why that number?
I have 13. 13's tattooed on me.
Why?
My birthday's the 1st of the 3rd.
Yeah.
So 13's always been my number.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's always 13.
Okay. If tomorrow was your last day on Earth, what would be your proudest moment?
Holding my kids for the first time. Yeah. I realize, as I said, it's a cliche thing to say, but it's only cliche because it's true.
I understand it. You don't know like true love until you hold your flesh and blood.
No.
And it's
I never understood vulnerability until I held my kids for the first time. I never understand real love, true love. Never understood responsibility. Yeah, look, I've done some cool things. I've been able to do some really cool things over the years, you know. That event that I said we started, that became the largest event in the world. Well, from Gold Coast to Sydney a few years ago, 60 Ks a day for 15 days straight.
Well,
yeah.
kind of like
shit. No, look, it was unreal. It was unreal. Loved every single minute of it. I wish I could relive that experience over and over, but I never want to do it again. You know,
Your feet would have been fucked after.
yeah, they went rotten. You know, shit like that on a, you know, that's shit for me. That's a personal shit for me. Yeah, but those kids, man, that changes you. And that's when you realize just how small and insignificant, I suppose, you are. Yeah, shit like that. Look, I'm proud to still be here too. I shouldn't be here, but I am. I'm very proud of what I've been able to build with Rise, and I wouldn't have been able to do it, you know, there's no way I wouldn't have been able to do it without the support I got from a lot of people, a lot of really good people, and I'm proud of the fact that I built those relationships as well. I've been very fortunate in the fact that I've been able to connect and work with and be guided by and mentored with so many cool people. And so I'm very proud of that, and a lot of those relationships will be lifelong. People from very different walks of life. Yeah.
Do you have any other lucky numbers? Let's go one more question.
Okay. Let's go 10.
Do you have just a bunch of random numbers on?
Oh, no. I'm one of those cheats. I've got my kids' birthdays tattooed on me so I don't forget them. So 26 and 10.
10. What does success mean to you?
Success for me means being proud of what you've done. You know, I'm a pretty simple dude in the fact that money isn't a driving force for me. Like I drive a 2007 Hilux. You know, I'd love if anyone from Toyota's out there, I'd love a 2023 Toyota Hilux, but I'm cool with the 2007. I don't need that. We've got a little house, little semi, you know, cool with that. Don't need the big joint. But I worked a job for 21 years that I hated, that I never wanted to do. I just got told I was doing it. My old man was a wharfie. In year 12, he said, when you finish school, you come and work with me. And so I never liked that job, but I'm now in a position where I love doing what I do. I complain like everyone else. You know, I was cursing you about 2 hours ago that you lived out in Penrith. Why couldn't you live around the corner? You know, little shit like that. Yeah. You know, like we all do. We all love to complain. You know, like I worked. Anyway, I go away a lot with work, but I love being able to do it. I'm proud of that. You know, that's success for me. That success is being, you know what? I'm glad I got up and did what I did today. You know, am I the best husband? No. Do I have a wife that loves me? Yes. Am I the best dad? No. Do I have kids that I love and love me? Yes. That's success. That's success. Got friends. I got friends that I can count on. Friends that I know if something happened to me, they'd look after my kids. That's success to me. I see people leave our sessions empowered, and they leave and they go and call people. That's success to me. Being able to come and talk to you here today, man, this is success to me. Because there was a time in my life where I didn't think this would be possible. I shouldn't be here. As I said, I'm a suicide survivor. I shouldn't be. So none of this stuff should have happened. So that's a success.
Talk to me about suicide for a second.
Yep.
I ask this question quite regularly. Do you believe suicide is selfish?
No.
Why?
I believe it's the opposite. You know, you can talk about the research and the data. Fuck that. From a personal experience, I can tell you suicide is the opposite to selfish. And, you know, and it's one thing that I'm very clear on it and love to talk to people about when we do these sessions is that you often hear, oh, why didn't they think of their loved ones? Why didn't they think of their kids? People are thinking of them. Unfortunately, what goes through people's heads is because our heads lie to us, our heads would have us believe that their lives were better off with us not in it. And so unfortunately, people think that they're doing their loved ones a favor by removing themselves. So that is the opposite of selfish. That's, you know, going through with something to end your own life so that you're not here anymore to make people's lives easier. That's the opposite to selfish. As I said, though, unfortunately, our heads lie to us. And people's lives aren't better with us not in it. But That is where our head takes us. And that's why having conversations with people is so important, so that if people do think that that's the case, by having these conversations, we can show them, no, that's not true. Even though your head's telling you right now that that's true, it's not true.
Yeah, I love having these conversations, because I used to have the perspective of, in a way, it was selfish, because
I was the same.
You're only passing on your pain to the other people in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's the viewpoint that I had.
Yep.
But through having these conversations, I understand, like, as you said, your mind lies to you.
Yep.
You feel like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And, look, at the end of the day, are you passing that pain on? Yeah, people are. You are.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part about it, But unfortunately, when we're in that place, we think we're doing the right. People think they're doing the thing to help people. They're doing it to help themselves. They feel there's no other way, that they've exhausted all other avenues to get help. And it may seem that that's the case at the time. But you talk to any suicide survivor, and they'll tell you that once you're through that, you're past that, the next day you realize that no, there is other avenues. And it's a shock. It's like a slap in the face that there is other ways. Unfortunately, as we said, our head just lies to us and would have us believe that. I do not think suicide is selfish. And I actually think that that's part of that word stigma that we need to get rid of. And as soon as we get rid of that, because when people are feeling suicidal, they don't want to talk to people because that's the viewpoint that people will take with them. So if we can change that viewpoint around it and that idea around it, that perception around suicide, we can change the way we have the conversations around it, which changes the way we interact with people, which changes the outcome, of those interactions. And look, I'm not a believer in zero suicides. A lot of organizations out there talk about zero suicides. I don't think it's possible. I don't think we will ever get to a point where it's zero. But I think we can minimize it. I think we can reduce the numbers drastically. I know we can.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly believe we can.
I believe it's highly preventable.
Yep. For the very, very, very vast majority of cases, I think it is preventable, yes.
You mentioned the word stigma.
Yeah.
I had this conversation a couple of weeks back with someone in this space, and he goes, how can there be a stigma around mental health? Turn on the news and look at the shit they're speaking about. How is there still a stigma around mental health?
Yep.
How?
Yeah, look, it's these old ways of thinking that take time to get rid of. I make the joke all the time, there's only one stigma we should be talking about, and that's a dude named Vinny Stigma. Vinny's a guitarist for a band, Agnostic Front, one of my favourite bands in the world, and Vinny's one of the greatest men in the world. He's a fucking legend. Vinny's like a New York Italian, probably in his mid-60s now, mohawk, tattoos on his head, lunatic. Here's the only stigma, I always say, here's the only stigma we should be talking about. This word stigma shouldn't exist. There's stigmas around a lot of things. And it's a hard word, but it's there. It's a word that's there because it's true. We're getting better. We're getting a lot better, Years ago, would blokes like us sit here, two blokes that had never met before and talk about this shit? No. Would there be people getting up and talking about it? No. And so it's going to take a long time to break, but we're getting there. I like to cause a bit of a stir sometimes. I've often called mental health the new AIDS.
Yeah, okay.
Which irks people the wrong way a bit. People get a bit defensive. How dare you compare their struggles and that? But I always talk about, there was a photo in the papers in the 80s of Princess Di shaking a dude's hand that had AIDS. And the headline read that she was going to catch it. She was going to get AIDS by shaking a guy's hand. And we look back now and we laugh about it, because we learn about that illness, and we changed our opinions of it. And I think mental health is exactly the same. I think around mental health, we're going to look back in 20, 30 years from now and laugh and be horrified about how we treated it and how we looked at it, that word stigma, because we're just not educated around it. And, that's, there's a lot of people out there now. We're just one cog in the wheel. There's a lot of people out there now changing that, and it's good. The more people we get, more conversations like this that happen, that will break that down. and the more people, different types of people from different walks of life with different stories talking about this, the more we can see, hey, this is shit we all go through. We all go through it. Why that word stigma is still there, it's just lack of education, I suppose. Changing our way of thinking. I love Tyson Fury, heavyweight boxing champ of the world. He openly talks about depression and anxiety and suicide. At the mind side, I was there the other day. I challenged, you got your tough bloke sitting there running around mine, his arms folded. We don't need to talk about this shit. We're tough, I said, well, I challenge you to tell him he's not tough. Go tell Tyson Fury to his face that he's not a man, that he's not strong, he's not tough because he talks about this. There you. He's a bloke too. He's human too. He goes through shit. We all do. Why that stigma's there, I think because we're worried about what people are going to think about us. Worried about what people are going to say.
It's that emotional risk that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
But true strength, I believe, is actually vulnerability.
100%. And it's not easy to talk about this stuff. It's not easy to be vulnerable. But that's where the strength lays. Yeah, that's where the strength lays. And, we talked about Goggins before. Well, he talks about being, how fat he was and everything, and being sitting there, drinking milkshakes and eating donuts and shit like that. He was in a vulnerable place. He talks about it. It's a bit over the top, but, all these stories that we love to hear about people, these uplifting stories, the books we love to read, the movies, all of that stuff, it's because we watch that journey. We see the low points and we see the comebacks, the highs, too. So, once, we'll get there. I'm not
one conversation at a time, eh? One workshop, one education.
That's it. One step at a time, man. One podcast like this at a time. One conversation, one workshop, one course, whatever.
That's all we can do, right?
That's it. And people can donate money. Does it help? Maybe. I don't know. But when people actually go and put their bum on a seat, that's I call that putting skin in the game. Spending the time to go and learn something, maybe change your viewpoint on a certain things, learn a few different new things. That's what makes change. And that's how we get rid of that word stigma. We look at it and we treat it the same way we do physical health. Talking about simplifying things before, I say to people, if someone walks in the room with a broken leg, we don't ignore it. And it's not like we say to the person, come here, I'll fix it for you. No, we say to them, we have a bit of laugh. What have you done?
Yeah.
And then we finish it with, do you need anything? Can I help? This is your mental health exactly the same. What have you done? You all right? Can I help?
Simple as that.
Simple, mate. Doesn't have to be overcomplicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. What stops us, I think, is we think we need to fix people. We need to know all the answers, or don't want to say the wrong thing. Don't want to make it worse. Not saying something's saying the wrong thing. Not saying something's making it worse. And it's not that you've got to fix. But I don't know how to fix people. But I can help. I don't know how to fix a broken leg. I can help. I don't know how to stitch a cut on someone's arm. If I can put pressure, elevate, and get them to a doctor, that's just helping. This is the same.
Going back to your first mate that you lost from suicide and you didn't answer the phone, is there a level of guilt and shame around that?
Massively. And look, I'm not self-centered enough to think that it was my conversation that was going to change things for him. I know he's probably reaching out to a few people, but I wore it very heavy, man. Very heavy. It drove me into some dark places. That regret, why the fuck didn't I do something? But as looking back now, I realized that, it wasn't all my fault because I'd never been told that two people could do that. I'd never spoken about what was going on in my life. No, there's no way I would have opened up to someone and spoke about it. I was conditioned to just swallow it, put on that persona, put on that mask and get on with things. Don't let people in. And I was never actually shown how to have that conversation. And so, it was months of me really wearing that. It was about 8 or 9 months later that a different friend from a completely different group, circle, reached out and said he'd heard about the mental health first aid course and did I want to go? And I was like, yeah, sweet, let's do it. And that's where things changed for me, where my perception of of how we can help people and what we can and can't do and what we should do and shouldn't do really changed. I realized it wasn't all my fault and that I just wasn't equipped with the tools. Also realized most of us weren't equipped with the tools.
No. Speaking of mental health first aid, I believe everyone should do it. I've done mine, and even being in this space and then doing the courses, like you learn new things.
Yep.
And it's stuff that you can go and implement in your own circle, which then can give them the tools to pass on to like creating that ripple effect, and it just continues building and building. So, yeah, I suggest everyone goes and does their mental health first aid.
100%. And look, that's what pays my bills. So of course I believe everyone should, but. If I got into this space to become a millionaire, it's never going to happen. The tools you learn in mental health first aid are invaluable, and they're tools you actually learn that you'll use in every day of your life, because it's all about letting people feel heard. And it's not about fixing people; it's about helping people,
holding space.
Yeah, and breaking apart how we can have these conversations. And I think that the two questions really we ever need to ask people is, one, would you like my help? If they say no, it's why. And if they say yes, it's how. How can I help? It doesn't have to be complicated. Just like someone's got a broken leg, someone's got a bad back. I laughed the other day. So, someone's got a bad back. They walk in a room, tell everyone they've got a bad back. Everyone all of a sudden has the best physio. Can't see my bloke, he's unreal. Someone walks in and got something wrong with their car. All of a sudden, everyone knows the best mechanic in town. They can get them a discount. Go and see my bloke, mention my name, he'll look after you. So why aren't we doing that with people we notice that are struggling mentally? Here's what I do. Why don't you try this? Or why don't you go and see my bloke? Or come on, I'll give you a hand. Someone's got something's wrong with their car. Bring it around my joint and I'll have a look at it for you. Well, this is the same.
Come around my place, shop in the ice bath.
That's it. Come around my joint. Let's just have a chat.
Yeah.
We also think one of the big things that I teach people in the first aid is we think this conversation has to be this intense moment. Me and you, eye to eye, face to face, holding hands, rocking back and forth, fucking crying. It doesn't have to be like that. Some of the best conversations I've had, some of the most beneficial conversations I've had is going for walks with people. Going for a swim with someone, kicking a ball around the park, because we're more relaxed, and especially if your mate's struggling, he loves to go for a bushwalk, he loves to go for a surf, loves to kick a footy around the park. Why not invite him to go do that? So walls are going to come down more. They're going to be more relaxed, more comfortable, more open to talk. As we sit there eye to eye, face to face in a room across from each other, the walls are up. We're defensive because we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's harder to have a conversation. So it's harder. I'm uncomfortable sitting there with you and you're uncomfortable till we feed off each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we end up not talking about it at all. And then it just makes it worse because then we both leave and we regret not bringing it up.
Yeah.
So why make it any harder for ourselves?
Exactly. Talk to me about echo chambers. You say they're such a dangerous place.
Yeah.
I seen that and I'm like, I want to dive deep into this.
Yeah. Look, I see it more and more as we go, and I think, especially with things like social media and stuff, people love to sit in that echo chamber and just listen to, talk to, and be around people that think the same as them, because it's that confirmation bias. Oh, I must be right because these people think the same. But what do we learn? It's not until we step out of that and actually hear other people's opinions and views on it that maybe we can learn. Because look, I learn shit all the time. I learn shit all the time from hearing people and talking to people. The vaccine stuff was the perfect example of this. You had to be on one side or the other. God forbid you were in the middle and didn't give a fuck what people did, because then you're ostracized by both sides of them.
Yep.
But people sit in that and they hear that confirmation bias and they think, I must be right. And they get those people pumping them up and all of a sudden they hear a different take on it. And that it's so foreign that they must be wrong. And it becomes a war with people, and they think that we can't be friends with people that think differently. If we all ate the same food every day, how fuck would that be? If everyone listened to the same type of music, everyone drove the same car, wore the same clothes. No, as I said, my son listens to hip hop. He hates my music. I hate his music. It's still okay. I got mates that hate my type of music. So what? Deal with it. If you're in the car with me, you got to listen to it. If I'm in your car, I've got to listen to it. But I think the more we can step outside of our comfort zone, and hear people's, like I said in that post, I said the best way to actually argue a point with someone is to learn their point, to actually learn where they're coming from and learn about it, and then we can maybe find the holes in it. But if I'm just looking at it from my point of view, what am I learning? We just talked to that part on suicide about it being selfish. People hear that and they think that it's right, but people are confronted when they hear maybe that's not right, because that's just always been the talk about it. So I think if we can step out of that, we can learn. Do you have to agree with someone? No. It's okay though. I can still learn about it.
It's just understanding there's two sides to a coin.
Yeah.
Got to understand both sides.
Yeah. Maybe they've got a valid point on some of it. We just got to learn and becoming comfortable being uncomfortable too. Because hearing people's other opinions isn't the most comfortable conversation. You know what? We love to argue. We love to fight. We love to prove ourselves right and prove them wrong. They're trying to do the same to us. So we're not having a constructive conversation if we're just trying to prove the other person wrong.
Just going in circles.
That's it. You end up just arguing for arguing's sake. So I think the more we can learn about different points of view, the more we can actually learn about ourselves too.
What's next for Rise? What's the next 5-10 years old?
Man, I don't know. I'm pretty lucky. We went out on our own because I was sick of having to ask permission to do shit. I was working with other organisations like Suicide Prevention Australia, running events for them and having to get, 8 people's signatures and them agreeing to, do whatever I wanted to do. And I was, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go out and do what I want to do. It's, people know about the mental health first aid course now, which is good because they didn't back then. Companies are now being legislated to run the training. So we'll keep doing that because I love that side of it. But, I'm hoping that, we can get it to the point too where we can go back to doing a lot more of the community stuff. We're getting back to that because like everyone, we've got bills to pay and stuff. I made, just at the start of COVID, I took a shop front, an office space. I've given that up now because it just wasn't getting used. It was one of those things, you try and expand a bit, try and grow. Sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, go back, refine what you're doing. We sort of like to do one big community event a year, which I really love. We've done a lot of charity stuff, 24-hour walks. As I said, the walk from Queensland, that was pretty cool. Stuff like that. We'll get back to. I'm heading out to Cowra in 2 months. The community out there is struggling, so they've asked us to come out. We'll go out and do that. We work with a couple of different mobs. So we'll see whatever, I like it. Something comes up.
Just going with the flow.
Go with the flow, mate. All the physical stuff, I'm too old and too busted these days to do. So if other people want to do it, we'll support them. I had a guy, Dan, last year, the year before, he did 9 marathons in 9 days in 9 cities. I'll support you, mate. I'm not going to do it with you anymore. But I'll come and support you. And, mate, I'm very lucky in the time that I've been doing it. I've built so many good relationships in so many different walks of life that I'm open to those sorts of stuff now, and I'm at a place where I can say yes or no. I won't be doing that. If people want to throw us a couple of motorbikes or something, we can do a big ride, I'm up for that. Yeah. But yeah, we'll just see what happens, and, different organisations, different ways of training. We don't just run the first aid now. We've got a refined version of 4-hour, sort of streamlined one. That was written by one of the world's greatest people, Debbie Swibble. We rolled that out because not everyone's got 2 days. First aid goes for 2 days, and not companies certainly struggle to give us 2 days. So we've pivoted and changed with it as too, and we've evolved with stuff as well. We'll be, things change so much. Anyone that does our courses, they can buy them. We have mental health first aid kits that we've built, which is just a whole trove of information and resources and stuff like that. But we're doing them on USBs. Most computers don't have USBs now. So we've had to pivot with that too, and come up with different ways of getting this across. As people change, different generations come through, we'll just have to pivot with it. I hated the virtual stuff over COVID. I had to go to virtual sessions. I hated it. But you had to do it at the
Just
time.
lacks that connection.
There's no connection. Half the people have their screen off, you know, and I found it unsafe because if I'm there talking about stuff like suicide, I can't see your reaction and how you're that feeling. People can turn their screen off or, you know, and so I hated that. We had to do it. A lot of it I didn't do. I was laying bricks for most of the time. But we'll just pivot as things come. I've got a young guy that's coming on with us now, Coda. He's going to be huge. You know, he's going to be really good in the space, and I'm lucky with the experience I've got. Now, I brought one guy through, Robbie. You know, Robbie was a boxing coach and wanted to get into the space, and so it was sort of like an apprenticeship, and now he's off earning more money than I do, you know, and so I love that side of it. You know, I'm probably getting a bit too old to go into schools these days, just because I feel that those kids look at me, I'm good with their dad's mate.
Yeah.
You know, so bringing the younger bloke Coda up through, he can go and connect with these kids. And so I think that may be part of the path. I've always said I'm in the job of putting myself out of a job, because if someone comes and does this work better than me, I'm happy to stand aside. I'll find something else, you know, or I'll help her however I can. So we'll just pivot with it. Who knows? Hopefully a bit of research gets done. We find a cure. That's the hope. You know, we find a way to make all this go away. Cool. Done. I'll go driving cranes again. I won't, but I'll find something else. They wouldn't have me back anyway. But no, man, who knows? Who knows? I don't want to put any plans on it. I love the fact that I can just go with the flow, keep doing what I love doing, and see what pops up.
Mm-hmm. For anyone that's listening and wants to maybe do mental health first aid, one of your workshops or anything like that, where can they find you?
Mate, Rise Foundation Australia. Instagram, Facebook, that's what we are. LinkedIn. Not on Twitter. That scares me. The risefoundation.net. They can get hold of us, you know. And look, you know, we run all different types of stuff. We're here to help, even if it's just a bit of advice, a bit of guidance, some resources, or you want to sit in and do some training yourself. That's what we're here for. There's plenty of other good mobs out there too that do great work. You've had some of the dudes on here. You know, I've always been one that's big on collaboration with people. But yeah, they can get hold of us, man. We're out here trying to do our best, just do our little part, just to, you know, a couple of bums from the beach in Sydney, doing the best we can. We've always said we're the sort of we're the ugly ones in this space. You know, we're not big on social media. That's just not me. We'd probably be a lot bigger if we were good on it, but that's just not. I don't have the drive or the passion for it. I love being able to go out and actually sit in rooms with people and connect with them. That's what I love. But yeah, they can get hold of us, man. Happy to have a chat.
Awesome. I'll put all the links in the description anyway. We have a closing tradition on the podcast, Ben, where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest without knowing who it is. And okay, you kind of touched on this, but what is your big dream and what steps are you taking to achieve it?
My big dream. My end goal in all of this, my dream has always been to have a place where people can go when they need help. You know, like we've got our rehabs and stuff like that. I'd love to have a space where people could come and do that, could come and sit, you know, spend some time with us. That's sort of mine, you know. I suppose that now that I sit here and say that, the sort of big dream, I touched on it before. If my kids can grow up in a world that's different to what I grew up in, perfect. You know, if their group of mates feel comfortable enough to talk to each other, perfect. If they live in a time and grow up in a place where if they're feeling down, things are getting hard, things are getting dark, things are getting tough, that they know where they can go to and get help, then they can get help. If they can talk to their mates and get help, perfect. Because that means I've left the world in a better place. And how am I getting to that? It's by going out and working, going out and doing this stuff. You know, sitting in the airport, sitting on planes, all the travel and everything like that, there's a purpose in it. I hate it. I complain about it. You know, I'm a sook just like everyone else. But I know there's a purpose in it. I know there's a reason. And that's why I do what I do.
Ben, thank you so much for taking the trip out here, having this amazing conversation with open mind, vulnerability. So, man, Thank you.
No, thank you for the work you're doing, mate. Having people like me on here, you know, this is just as important, mate. Hearing people's stories. So well done to yourself.
Legend.
Thanks, fella.